Hey everyone, my name is Michelle Benani, and we are at the Spin Developer Community Meeting for July. It's July 24th, 2023, and we have a fun agenda here today. First up, I'm going to do two demos, maybe one, maybe I'll save the last one or the second one for later. We have some announcements and we have some kind of housekeeping agenda items as well. And then we'll open the floor for any questions or other discussions. And then if anybody wants to introduce themselves at the end, feel free. We're friendly. We like to hang out. Anyways. Okay, cool. So I will share my screen for the first demo. We have a new feature called Spin Doctor. And let me just share my screen. Oh, I should have checked earlier. I need host permission.
Did that work?
I think I asked for the wrong thing. I asked to record the meeting and not share my screen. Maybe we can cut this part out later.
Yeah, we can. Share screen options. There we are. All right, you should be opened up now.
Okay. Did that work? Can you all see my screen?
Yep.
Like the one with the terminal?
I think so. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, sounds good. Cool. So Spin Doctor is a command that you can run. Currently, I have Spin built at main, and I have CD'd into the examples directory. So see Spin examples HTTP REST. And I'm just going to remove this target directory to display what this does. But Spin Doctor is something you can run on your Spin applications, and it'll basically diagnose any issues and give you a few treatments. It's interactive. So here, my diagnosis is that I'm missing the compiled component hello. So there's nothing at the source that I have specified in my spin.toml file. And it says that I can fix this by running the spin build command. I could do nothing, or I could see more details about the recommended changes. I'm just going to select the first option, which is run spin build. This will build the application for me, giving me all my compiled resources, and I will just run spin build -- up after this is complete. And that works. And Spin Doctor says that everything is good to go. And I personally really like this little stethoscope and the heart. Feel really good about those. So yeah, that's Spin Doctor. I'm going to skip over the second demo, and we can move to announcements, and then I'll come back to the second demo after the calls to action. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Melissa, for the SQLite host component announcement. Ooh, you are muted.
Yes, I am. So in version 1.4 of Spin, we introduced a built-in SQLite database. And if you've already used our KV store, built-in KV store in Spin since Spin 1.0, then you'll have a very familiar experience with the SQLite database. So when you reference the SQLite database in your application manifest file, Spin will do all the work to create and set up that database for you to use. All you need to do is access that database using the API, which is available in the language SDKs. And then you just use the SDK to open a connection, execute an SQL statement, and then close the connection. And Spin handles all the communication for you. You do not need a connection string or credentials or anything like that. And yep, so it's out there in Spin 1.4. Go ahead and play around with us and let us know what you think.
Sounds good.
And
Thanks.
go ahead, Michelle.
Awesome. And Brian, I hear you have some WIT bind gen updates for us, so feel free.
Yeah, so since the 1.4.1 release of Spin, we upgraded Spin and the Spin SDK to use the 0.8 version of with the WIT bind gen and the WIT bind gen ABI. This is notable for primarily because it brings us one step closer to being able to support the component model when it stabilizes in Preview 2 or stabilizes-ish for Preview 2. The notable changes through this change or through the WIT bind gen update is that our WIT files are now using the latest and greatest WIT syntax for describing packages and some other details of WIT syntax that I'm not going to get into right now. And the other notable change is that our Rust SDK no longer takes a dependency on WIT bind gen. So for the people who really enjoy looking at how the sausage is made, that's a pretty cool thing that we're no longer depending directly on the WIT bind gen SDK and or the WIT bind gen in the Rust SDK. Moving towards Preview 2 is pretty exciting because it unlocks some power user developer experience for composition and static analysis. So we're excitingly one step closer to the component model support. Joel, I meant to, I don't know if the WIT bind gen has, the WIT bind gen update has any implications around Python dependency or anything you were linking there. If you want to make a comment, otherwise that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, right now it shouldn't, we reuse the Rust SDK in the Python and the JavaScript SDKs. I don't know, Karthik might be able to speak to whether either or both of those have actually been updated to use the latest Rust SDK, but there shouldn't be any user visible change in any case. Things will get a little bit more complicated once the componentized Py work, which is like the next generation of the Python SDK that I'm working on, comes into play, in which case we will no longer be using the Rust SDK behind the scenes in that case, and it'll use its own binding generator internal to that tool. But that's further on down the road. For the time being, bottom line is no changes. Things should just work.
Cool. Thanks, Joe. Michelle.
Sounds good. Thanks, y'all. Okay, so we've done our announcements. We've got Spin Doctor, we've got the SQLite host component, we've got the WIT bind gen updates. I think I'll jump in here and show y'all what I've been working on. The content was like a little light today, so I was like, yeah, maybe I'll show something that I've been working on recently. I just use this app to like test out new features or do things basically when I'm half asleep. So I can't guarantee like the code quality is the best, but it works. So, okay, cool. Also, I've been working on this with Brian and Karthik. Karthik's been helping me on the front end, and Brian's been working with me to sound check all of the stuff on the back end. So it's been a really fun like hack project for the three of us. But it is a ginormous work in progress. Can you all see my screen okay? This is the GitHub page. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Okay, so this is for the Spin project, we get issues. We have basically a rotation, a triage rotation. So every week, 2 people go in the issue queue and they just, we have a list of triage steps that we conduct. But basically there's a Spin app that kind of helps us generate who the 2 people are going to be. And that's this Spin pick 2 handler right here, this pick 2 component. It's really simple in that it just generates like from a list of maintainers, like basically Spin gets a Spin config variable, and we use that to generate a pair of people. So that's what pick 2 does. But I kind of wanted to like expand this a little bit. So we created more of like a calendar for a whole month. And this component here, schedule month, basically schedules each month. There's the CRUD API endpoints like implemented there. I think update isn't implemented, but everything else is. So you can like create the schedule for a month, given a list of maintainers using that config variable as well. And then the more interesting part is I really love for us to be able to like basically say who's on vacation and generate the calendar for the next month based on like people's updated schedules. And so we're thinking about how we want to do that. And everybody uses GitHub so on our team. So basically a one day log into GitHub button that allows users to log in. And then if you're a valid maintainer, then you'll be able to like update your schedule. And so I've just been working on this like kind of GitHub OAuth button essentially. And so that's what I'm going to dig into a little bit today. It uses we use Vue. Okay, so that's the GitHub OAuth. This component is the back end and calendar is the front end. And this is a Vue app. And thank goodness for Karthik, because I was so lost on which JavaScript framework to use, but he recommended this and kind of helped me get started. But essentially there is a login to GitHub button. And I'll just build this and show y'all what I'm talking about here. There's a login to GitHub button here, and this is the Vue app, and this is just a calendar of pairs. Very minimalist, as you can see. To implement this button, you need 3 things, essentially. You need the login button, which is our front end. You need to create a GitHub app, which will actually help you do the authentication bit. And you need a handler in your backend that handles the GitHub redirect. So when you log in, or when you make a request to log in, you use a client ID that comes from the GitHub app to basically say, I want to log in to and grant this app something. And this is just right now, we're just taking someone's like username and email. And what this does is it redirects to after you log in with GitHub, it will redirect to some backend handler. Well, that handler gets a code, and basically we exchange that code with GitHub for some sort of an access token, and then we can use that access token to get information about the user or do things on behalf of the user. So I think I have to be in incognito to kind of demo this, but no, Amazon, excuse me. So this is the button, and then you'll basically get this login screen. I'm not going to log in right now, but you'll just do this, and then you'll basically get a request to the backend, and then the backend looks like this. This is kind of where we're going. We have a router that matches to the route that we have specified GitHub to do the callback on. And we're going to use the maintainers config and to basically allow a certain set of maintainers to access this. We're going to grab the code from the request. We are going to then exchange that code for some sort of token. We use that token to get the person's username, and we match that username on a set of maintainers to essentially say, hey, like, is this person allowed or not allowed? And we return some sort of a response. And actually, we were just returning this, just generate like 200, but we want to redirect back to the front end. So I've added this like location header and a 302 to redirect back to the front end. Sorry, this is like a longer demo than I was expecting, but I've never done this run through before. So essentially you're going to, we haven't implemented all of this yet, but if I go through this, what just happened was I had already logged in. I clicked the button. I had already logged in and done the token dance. But we did the token dance and then we redirected back to localhost 3000. So that worked. So, and there's one more part that I wanted to kind of show that what we're going to do next. And I think it's in the calendar. So in the calendar, there's this is basically an idea of what we're doing to get to that login to GitHub page. We're making a request to this URL with this client ID. I'll delete it later, but essentially, and it's not that secret, but this is the client ID that you get from your GitHub app. And then you tell GitHub, hey, after the user has given permissions, redirect to this URI. And so this is our handler. And this is called a state param. We'll discuss that in a second. But essentially that is how it works. Now, if someone has this client ID, then they can basically make this request, get this access token back that we, give, that we've exchanged the code for in the backend. And so to protect ourselves from lots of different malicious issues, we're going to implement the state param next. The state param is something, it's like a randomly generated string that we're going to pass to GitHub as a param, but we're also going to set it in a cookie. And then in the backend, we're going to validate that that state param is the same as the one that we got in the cookie to make sure that the right client is actually making the right request to the backend, or is eventually getting to the backend from the right client. So that's that. It was a little longer than expected, but yeah, that's the idea. So anyways, if y'all are in the mood to write some code with one eye open, half asleep at night, then feel free to jump in on this repo. I'll throw some issues up, and if you have any ways to make it better, feel free. Yeah, and I'll keep y'all updated on progress. That's it for that. Okay, and any questions? Okay, so moving on with the agenda, let's go forward to the calls to action. Melissa, you want to take that one?
Sure. Okay, so this is our third month now with our developer community call, and we just want to make sure that we're reaching as many people as we can. So we've set up a small survey here. It's 3 questions. It's not really long, just figuring out what days and times are good for everyone. So if you could go out and just fill out that form, that would really help us out. And based on the feedback, we may move it. We may alternate between 2 different times and just try to get as many people available at the calls as possible. That's the first one. A second one is we are approaching, our next version is 1.5 for Spin in August. And so with that in mind, we're looking forward to 2.0. And so now is the time to start thinking about what you would like to see in a Spin 2.0 version. And if you've got ideas, if you've got enhancements, if you've got must-haves, definitely get those into our issue queue. And let's start discussions on things so that we can get a good roadmap going for 2.0. And those are our calls to action. So I will hand that back to Michelle.
Sounds good. Thanks, Melissa. Okay, I'll just open the floor for any discussion or questions. Does anybody have anything that they want to talk about? All right, and I think we're all familiar with each other, but if anybody wants to do an intro, feel free. Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right, thanks everyone for joining. See y'all next time.